Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Marley. I'm a first year med student now, but 2 years ago, almost exactly, I was stressing trying to figure out which med schools to apply to, just like many pre-meds applying this cycle are. I remember trying to keep the list to under 15 schools because I just didn't have the money to apply to anymore. I remember it being so overwhelming to find that each school had a very different set of requirements and seemed to have a certain image that they wanted to maintain with the types of students that they recruited. It was really clear that schools for example, UCSF and Hopkins were looking for applicants with really extensive research experiments and publications because they're research powerhouses. That's part of their image, their reputation. Other schools, on the other hand, were very much focused on their immediate communities, volunteerism, and service. Some were stat hoarders, and others not so much. And I really struggled sifting through all this information, trying to figure out where to apply, until I realized that I was looking at this completely the wrong way. I was looking at each school thinking, would they want me? Or do I fit their mold? When really I should have been looking at it do I want them? Do they fit what I want in a med school? And that's when it changed. That's when it became way easier. I made a comprehensive list of all the things that were important to me for a school to have, all the must-haves. I blazed through MSAR, kept the ones that fit what I needed and that were reasonable. Obviously I'm not going to apply to, UC Riverside when they literally take 0.015% of their applicants from out of state. And boom, had my list done the next day. Guess how many were on my list? 9. It was like magic. It was amazing. I kept it under my goal of 15. And I loved every single one of them. Not only did that make essay writing so much easier, since I really did my research and knew what I liked about each school, but there were only 9, so I could afford to take the time, perfect each of the essays, and really put some effort into them and not get burned out. A lot of my friends got burned out. They applied 50 schools, and then you get drowned in essays. This kind of solved my problem. I didn't have that problem. Looking back now, I'm glad that I had that light bulb moment and that I was able to feel good about my apps, but there are definitely a few things that I would have liked to have known about each school that weren't really on my radar back then. Disclaimer here, each person's personality, priorities, and preferences when thinking about medical schools is obviously going to be unique and different. So what's important to you may not be as important to another applicant. But I wanted to mention a few things that aren't usually on a prospective med student's list of things to worry about or think about or ask about when they're going through the application process and then interviewing. So first, is administration responsive to student input? Ask students about this. If so, what is the process and what's the turnaround between feedback and implementation? This is a big deal because once you're locked into a school and you're going there, if you notice something about school policy or curriculum that should probably be updated, you should feel comfortable bringing that up and be supported in your suggestion and have it taken seriously and then acted on in a timely manner. This is one thing that I really like about my school. Feedback is always asked for by administration. I am almost sick of giving feedback. That's how much we're asked for it, which is a good thing. Next, is there a mentoring program with physician staff at the associated teaching hospital system? It should go without saying that mentorship is insanely important while we're trying to figure out which direction our career is going to take. So definitely ask current students about this at the schools that you are considering applying to. Another good one to think about and ask about is whether there are preclinical elective options. Curating your first and second years, because that's generally the preclinical years at most institutions, and getting exposure to different topics and fields is important to develop our interests and start applying what we're learning. If any of you are like, Marley, what are you even talking about? Electives, what even is that? Can be an entire year long, or they could be 2 or 3 weeks long. It depends on the school and the course. But here is a not comprehensive list of electives that I've heard of. Global health, social medicine, medical Spanish, addiction medicine, career exploration, bioinformatics, medical coding and billing, wilderness medicine, advocacy and healthcare, intersectional health justice, business and medicine, medical journalism, intro to EHR, electronic health record, climate change and health, LGBTQIA considerations in healthcare, racism and prejudice in healthcare, and those are only a handful. There are tons more out there. Check and see what the schools you like have available, and ask if students can be involved in the creation of new electives. It's a really cool way to leave your mark and explore something that interests you. Okay, another thing that's really important. Ask, does the school do NBME or professor-written exams or a mix of both? Because there are pros and cons to both of them. NBME is the kind of standardized style, more similar to what you'll get when you take your all-important STEP exams, but some of the questions that are available for faculty to use on examinations in med school can be outdated. On the other hand, professor-written exams can be naturally biased depending on the particular specialty and focus of the professor, and therefore may not reflect content that will really be tested on your STEP exams. But they are more likely to be up to date or cutting edge. Now, if you look into this and you decide that you have a really strong preference either way, definitely ask the school what their testing policy is before you commit or set your heart on them as your dream school. Okay, this next one is something that is especially important given this past crazy year of onlineness. It's good to ask if the school has a really robust system for online opportunities for students, volunteer, research, whatever. Because I'll tell you, it really is kind of a bummer when everything in person gets shut down because of COVID or something. And then all of the cool research and volunteer opportunities that you had lined up or wanted to do go down the drain and get shut down with really no online option. I consider myself lucky. We do have a robust system of opportunities for students, and we're always presented with new things to do that can be online or distanced. But I have friends at other schools who it sounds like have not been so lucky. So definitely ask about this if this is important to you. Oh, this one is super, super, super important. If you have a significant other, ask, are there programs or certain groups or support anything for your significant other in the area or at the school? Your SO is along for this insane thing that you're doing, maybe even moved across the country with you, completely uprooted maybe. It can be just as brutal for them as it is for you, just in different ways. They can potentially feel really isolated. Now, my significant other and I consider ourselves extremely lucky because we found ourselves in an awesome supportive community of students and non-students who literally include my SO in everything. And that's one of the reasons why we absolutely love it here. And here's something that definitely looking back, it went totally over my head and I really wish I'd asked about it. It would have been good to know. Most places don't talk about scholarships or grants or any kind of financial aid available to anyone past first year. There's often money set aside for specific purposes that aren't mentioned usually in the initial, hi applicants, we're so awesome, apply to us because XYZ pitch, because they figured that you only really care about getting in at the time. They don't, they're not expecting you to think really past acceptance to second, third, and fourth year of med school, which I mean is true, but it's important to understand that there are some schools that have a ton of financial aid available for M2s through M4s and others do not. If there are a lot of scholarships and grants available internally to students who do a lot of community service or are particularly awesome at research or have done research in a particular area or have honored all their classes or whatever. That's important to know for your future financial situation and debt load consideration. And it gives you a better idea of what activities they value and reward, and you get to see if that lines up with your own priorities. Another thing to worry about or ask about is their remote learning platforms. Can't stress this enough. Ask current students about how administration has adapted to online learning. Every school was kind of forced to adapt really quickly when COVID hit, forcing 99% of things to be done online for the past year. And from what I've heard and seen, some schools have managed this transition better or worse than others. Again, ask current students about this. Because of the online platforms that they use for lecture and test taking are a serious headache, it's good to at least be aware of that and have at the very least a heads up. Key to happiness in life, managing expectations, right? Right. And how about, here's one thing not to worry about. The age of the school itself. Older schools are not inherently better than younger schools, despite what some silly people out there say. Now, if you're going for like prestige, name clout, by all means, like yeah, go for the Ivies, power to you. Just know that any accredited medical school in this country is going to give you an amazing education. They just do so and present that education with different styles and areas of emphasis that may or may not vibe with you. This is why I am a huge believer in every applicant doing their due diligence and doing plenty of research before applying to schools. Get an MSAR subscription, tear it up, go through every single school, really get a good idea of what kind of student a school is looking to recruit based on their mission statement, the highlights and lowlights of that school according to current students, and if it's somewhere where you could feel supported through these super intense years. I talk about this more in a previous video about med students giving their best advice to pre-meds, and I'll link that video above. And that's it. That's all of the things that I wish I'd asked about while I was making my list of schools to apply to and interviewing. If you found this video helpful, let me know. Leave a like down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to share it with the pre-meds in your life. Thank you all so much for watching, and catch you next week.